Okay, here's a good question here from Prescott. Percent allocation to microstrategy versus Bitcoin. I don't think that there's a right answer to that. I don't think it's different for everybody. That's one thing I'll say. It really depends on what country you're in. It depends on how old you are. It depends on what you want to do with the money, with the gains from it, and also where your money's sitting right now. So I'll maybe just focus on a couple of those things just for simplicity. But for how much cash you have, I would say that that's kind of the main one, is like whatever amount of cash you have, whatever amount of money you have in like a savings account, money that's out of the system. So when I say the system, I mean like brokerages, like your stock portfolio, your bonds, your retirement fund at work, any money outside of that you have that you can have access to without paying any fees or taxes on, that's what goes into Bitcoin. You get some Bitcoin, you send it to your cold storage. That's what you're going to have forever. That's like buying a piece of land or a piece of real estate. Like you're going to have that forever, or like a farm, right? It gets passed on generation to generation. That's like your main thing. But any money that you have inside the system, inside your stock portfolio, inside of your retirement fund, I would honestly put them, like, this is my experience. I'm not saying that this is what I would do. This is what I have done. Any money I have in the system is all in Bitcoin related companies, because any company, no matter how good their sales are, what they're doing, they're holding their treasury, their savings, their equity in fiat, and it's just going to continue to melt, and eventually they'll catch on. They'll buy Bitcoin, but I'm only invested in the companies who are holding Bitcoin right now. So that's MicroStrategy, that's Semler Scientific, that's Block, that's Tesla, that's Bitcoin Well. I bought some shares in Bitcoin Well just because they're a Bitcoin company. They hold Bitcoin. And, they might turn into like an RBC of Canada here in the future. I think that they could. And their shares are like 5 cents right now. So that's what I would say. But you also have to consider, like, when you think you're going to need when are you going to spend it? I guess I'd say. So let's say that you have $50,000 worth of debt right now, and one of your goals is to pay that off. So here in Canada right now, you could take like $5,000. You could put it into MicroStrategy with your TFSA. You're not going to pay any tax on the gains on that. And maybe in a couple of years, it gets up to $50,000, and you can cash that out tax-free, pay off your debt, and you're good to go. It's much harder to do that with Bitcoin. It'd be very hard to pay off a $50,000 line of credit or a car loan or whatever by having to sell your Bitcoin. So that's what I would the main two considerations there are: where's the money now, and what do you want to do with the money in the future? Hope that makes sense. Daniel, one of our Bitcoin journeymen, says, Jor, what happens to the stock market, or better said, stock shares you own in a company like NVIDIA, MicroStrategy, when the fiat system starts collapsing? Will the shares be worthless? Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was just talking about there. I mean, that's one of the main risks, honestly. That's why I say the number one thing, if you have cash outside of that system, is Bitcoin. Because no matter what happens, no matter if there's a cyber attack, a power outage, they take down the internet for a month, with Bitcoin, whenever it comes back on, you're going to have your Bitcoin. And that's pretty important, especially given this time in history here. Things like Trump getting into office, I think, really minimize the chances of this happening now, through my perspective anyways. It could happen. It might happen. But I think the odds of that happening now are much lower than they were if Kamala would have won. That's just my opinion. That's my theory on it. But, even when the fiat system collapses, there's still going to be companies, right? There's forever going to be companies they have products and services that they can sell at a lower price than other people. And that's how you earn money in the world. That's how you add value to people. So there's always going to be companies. I just think that the companies who are holding their treasury, their assets in fiat, are going to be the ones most affected by this. because they're going to have to keep jacking up their prices. That's why I just don't even mess with any, fiat companies right now in the stock market. Like Nvidia, I wouldn't touch that with a 8,000 foot pole. Apple, same thing. I wouldn't. Like, why? They're still fully in the fiat world. They have so many shareholders there. Their board of directors. It's going to take them a very long time to get to Bitcoin. Not because they don't want to. Like the CEO of Apple, Tim Apple, as Trump calls him. Tim Apple has said on mainstream news that he's a Bitcoin, like he owns Bitcoin. But the amount of hoops that a company like Apple would have to jump through to get to Bitcoin is very high. And we're gonna see some proof of this, I think, in the next month here with Microsoft. It's the same kind of thing. They asked their shareholders, do you want to start buying some Bitcoin and hold it as a treasury? And it's a very long process for them. So even if they do figure out that they need it, they still have to take 6 months to a year for it to be approved. If it's approved, then they have to build out an entire team to manage that Bitcoin, because you have a bunch of people who you're responsible to. And so those companies are so far behind right now. And if you're under the assumption that fiat is going to continue to melt, which it is, there's no other way for it to go right now, and you're under the opinion that Bitcoin's going to continue to go up, then it makes absolutely no sense to hold shares in a company who's earning fiat and holding their savings in fiat. So I don't think they'll be worthless. They're just going to be exactly like everything else on earth. It's just going to be repriced by Bitcoin, and it's going to slowly go down and down. And the companies who aren't holding Bitcoin are going to be the ones who are most affected by that.